This episode is proudly supported by Anchor Food Professionals, makers of mainland cheese. Here's Andy Sy from the Notting Hill Hotel.
We've been using them for a few years now, using their tasty and mozzarella cheese. We go through about 135 kilos a week at the moment. So a huge number. So we use it for our garlic bread, our pizzas, our parmas, our bechamel, our cheese sauce for our croquettes and arancini, throughout our lasagnas, anywhere we can really. It's such a good product. You know, having the freshest chips to your fresh chicken to a freshly crumbed schnitzel and topping up with a really high quality cheese is amazing.
For more information, go to anchorfoodprofessionals.com.
It's a very joyful place, you know, and everyone's here to provide and see happy faces with their food and their wine. And they share, everyone shares. It's not like this is mine.
Hey everybody, this is Dani Valent with you, and we are doing Dirty Linen. Thank you so much for joining me for a food, travel, life chat. I love bringing you interesting places, interesting people, and gathering around the endlessly nourishing topic of food. Dirty Linen has been so lucky to be on the road a bit lately, and today we find ourselves travelling again about an hour and a half up the highway from Melbourne to the lovely little town of Hepburn Springs. We're in a special place. We are with the Jens at the Old Macaroni Factory. Jenni Wilmoth and Jennie Draper have lovingly restored a building that was constructed in 1859 when Swiss-Italian immigrants made this part of Victoria their home. And it's an extraordinary place that I've seen change and develop over the arduous and hopefully satisfying process of restoration and renovation. The Jens have made this a very special place to visit, and hopefully you will get to experience it one day. Jens, welcome.
Hello.
So you are mostly listening to Jenni Wilmoth, but we will turn the mic to Jennie Draper when the topic suggests that we must. Jen, set the scene for us.
We needed a new project about 4 years ago, and we stumbled on this place that we really believed in the end after a walk through, and we were just eye boggles. We went down to the local wine shop, bought a bottle of wine. By the end of that bottle, we'd sorted out exactly how we could make it work. It's a daunting place for most because the task was huge to work through the bureaucracies, which is mainly Heritage Victoria, and it every single inch of it is listed with Heritage Victoria, so we had to get a special permit to garden. I suggested that I'd found a bocce court by whippersnippering the ivy, and the case manager said, "You what?" I said, "I know, we found a bocce court." She said, "No, what were you doing with the ivy?" I said, "Oh." She said, "Where's your permit?" So she was really teaching us a bit of an early lesson. Everything has to go through them, which it did. So we said, okay, we'll do that. And we did 3.5 years of bureaucracy, and it's paid off with this dream of a place that we now live in. We share the garden with the wildlife and the kangaroos and guinea fowl and the occasional echidna, and we're growing beautiful things there. The factory's been restored, so we share that with groups of people who come in for special events, and we have Pietro's residence, which is now the accommodation, which is a really amazing place to be. Not for everyone, because it's not the Hyatt, but when you want something different, wow, this is it, this is the place. There was no water in the whole building, so we had to put a bathroom into the little accommodation space. And they said, well, what are you going to do with that? We said, well, they said the original floors, can't touch the ceilings, can't touch the walls. So we mounted a platform and inserted a pod and built, it didn't go to the ceiling, it doesn't touch the walls, and everything's on this platform. So it's really funky. Completely contemporary, which we wanted all the contemporary, beautiful furniture to ping against the old walls, and everything else is so old and so beautiful. You are in Italy. We had one visitor here, she was in her 80s and she's Maltese. She walked down the hallway, which is where everyone just goes as they're stepping down into the pergola, grape dripping area outside, and they all think, oh my God, I'm in Italy. And this woman, she grabbed it. I thought, here she goes, she's in Italy. She said, I feel like I'm in Coburg. It was just this moment where it was just delicious. And I got it, it's so Italian, this place. But her reference was a Coburg suburb of Melbourne, where there were a million immigrants from Italy settled. And our people that came here, they were from northern Italy, a little town called Intra on Lago Maggiore. And they came here because of the battle for the Risorgimento, which is the unification of Italy back in 1849. Mazzini and Garibaldi and key figures, people would know their names probably. They lost the first battle, so they had to exile out of Europe. So the two brothers, Lucchini brothers, Giacomo and Pietro, came here. So they came to Melbourne. They opened up they were fabric merchants, and they sold their suitcases full of lace and beautiful things, made enough money to build a little shop in Little Lonsdale Street, Melbourne. And they were making pasta, which in those days was called macaroni. It was a general name. Pasta's an Americanism that was later on. Anyway, they were selling it to the English and Irish, and they were like, oh, what's this muck? This pasta muck, macaroni muck. So they were failing a bit. But then they heard there was a gold strike in Ballarat. So they rushed up to Ballarat. And then they heard that there was a gold strike in Hepburn Springs, which was then called Spring Creek and Daylesford. And they heard that there were some Italian-speaking Swiss people up here. So they thought, oh, this is where we'll go. They came up here, built a little shop, decided to supply the miners. So they were making olive oil, wine, eventually wine when their grapes came to fruition, but salamis as much as they could, they were supplying the miners. So that's how they made their money, because when the miners couldn't pay them cash, maybe it was a bit of gold, maybe it was a share in their mine. Well, all the mines struck gold, so they were eventually pretty rich. So 10 years later, when the Garibaldi was fighting the fight again, and the revolution, maybe was one word, Risorgimento, the fight happened, and they unified. So the family back home in Intra said, oh, boys, you come back. They went, oh, no, we're now rich, we're kings of Hepburn, we just started building this magnificent building, we're not going anywhere. So they did build the magnificent building, is now our joy, 2-storey in the middle flanked with 2 single pavilions, so it's Palladian style, which makes it in Australia the most listed property, because it's the oldest Palladian style building in Australia, the oldest building built by an Italian or Italians in the Italian style, and it's the murals on the ceilings painted by one of the brothers, Giacomo, show political messaging in a domestic environment, so it's the only example in Australia. So that's why Heritage Victoria was so adamant about how this whole thing would work, and how we had to live under this banner of scrutiny. And we very much appreciate that, because we know what we are protecting as custodians going forward. So with the workers on site, we had an acre, we've got an acre of land, and it's Italian gardens, so they're like rooms. It's not like the big English vistas that they used to have. Capability Brown did those back in the day. Well, this is completely the opposite. It shortens your view, so you just have a view for one little tiny section, then you walk into the next section, there's another view. So the garden rooms, very Italian. So we built our new house on the edge of this property, which we live in, and it's superb place to live. And then we look after the rest of the building, and we have a new kitchen that's been attached to the old building, the old factory. The old kitchen had to come down. It was a bit asbestosy. So we've got a nice new commercial kitchen for that purpose. So there's running water now. There is, for the first time in its 166-year life, there's heating, which is hydronic. So we had to get a very skinny, long boy to come and insert that through the building here, to snake his way through. There's no foundations, there's no stumps. The walls go straight down to the ground, so he had to find his way with all this piping. So most people wouldn't even know what we've done, but why did it take 3.5 years? Well, it's the things that you don't see. And everything had to be a head-scratching scenario for the authorities to allow us to do so many of the bits and pieces, but it all came together in the end, and we're thrilled. And all the authorities are pretty thrilled too that it's all happened this way too. So we just now are ready to share it with the public, and hopefully everyone who has been here already, a couple of little events, they just marvel. They really love it.
Well, why wouldn't they? It's absolutely magnificent. I've had the pleasure of staying last night in Pietro's apartment, and the bedroom the walls are painted as though you're in a rather ornate jail, and the ceiling mural depicts some European flags and shows, She's also in jail. She's chained to the
dungeon.
Chained to the dungeon. Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that fresco.
Yeah. So that is it's all about the representation of the struggle and then the freedom. So the flags that are represented, there's some of them are misdrawn. It's quite funny. There's the British flag, because we weren't yet federated. That was our Australian flag at the time. There's the French flag. There's a Swiss flag with the crosses wrong. It's like a religious cross, so it's wrong, but it's so cute. And then there's the Italian flag, everyone thinks. But back in the day, it was actually their battle flag. Now, initially, it is the Italian flag, but there was an interim where they had before they were a republic, they were a monarch, so there was a House of Savoy stamp in the insignia in the middle of that flag. So then within the centre of the room, when you're lying in the bed looking up, Giuseppe Verdi was a sympathiser for the Risorgimento. So he wrote Il Trovatore, and this represents that. So she is liberté, she is freedom, but she's wearing the people's cap, so she's saying it's the people, but she's chained to the dungeon. So basically the people are not free. Above each flag there's another symbol. It's the laurel wreath intertwined with the crown of thorns. So the crown of thorns is suggesting the pain and the struggle to get to freedom, and then the laurel wreath to say now we are free, we are enjoying it. So it's very symbolic, and it's extremely beautiful to look at.
It is. It's like to wake up there and there's cockatoos flying by, and the clouds racing past, and just connecting with that Italian history or that European history is pretty extraordinary. There is a lot of resonance here, and a lot of connections between what was going on in Australia at the time and what was going on in Europe. Like, what's it been like to sort of, connect those threads? Yeah,
well, both Jenny and I have travelled extensively in Italy, so we know the feel, we know how it smells, how it, the tactileness of Italy. We've got an understanding of the Italianness, and we know that this place has got the Italianness there. And look, every moment of every day when we walk through, the garden changes, the weather's different, the place reacts so differently, and every time it's just glorious. We are so fortunate to have this place. You can be absolutely exhausted after a day of gardening, and you just look up and go, oh wow, look at that. The artichokes have just gone nutty, and they're just doing their thing, and you just think, oh, isn't that beautiful set against the blue sky? I don't know, it's gorgeous.
And what's it like? I mean, was it always the plan to share it with people?
Always the plan. We practiced, so to speak, with a property before this where it was a lower key but historic property, but not as much as this is, in a different register. And we really enjoyed getting to the point where we could share that. But this is a whole different kettle of fish, and living here as well, and also living in the area of Hepburn Springs, which is, we were in Daylesford and we loved it there, and it's getting a little bit busy, Daylesford, it's like not many days where it's all locals, maybe Wednesday. Anyway, so we found that this is a quieter space, but it's actually really, it's a beautiful space to get to know, and there's a lot to it, but deeply hidden. You've got to really scratch your way through it, and it's a lovely area.
Well, it's only a few kilometres from Daylesford, but it does have a very different
It's 3 kilometres. It's not in Yugoslavia, is it?
What's it like as a food precinct, this part of Victoria?
Well, that's where we're very, very lucky. At the moment, we're working with a couple of local chefs, and all the chefs, as do we, we have all our produce from local. You can say whose carrots are these? Oh, these are Florian's or the Edwards carrots. You know, it's down to that level. It's just wonderful. So we know that the pork, where we probably saw on Instagram when they were babies, and you know, watched them grow a bit. So the story of food here is extraordinary, and we are so lucky. So the chefs all reflect that in their seasonal offerings, which is what they love to do, and the offerings can be very varied. So if you were to come here for a 60th birthday and you work with one of the chefs to create your menu, you're usually creating it from a seasonal range that's available, and it's all grown pretty locally, as are the wines. So really, we are spoiled here. What
are some of your favourite places to dine out in the region?
We love Surly Goat. It's in Hepburn Springs too, which is nice and close and easy. But their service is incredible. The food is always changing and always a delight, and he might be experimenting with something and you just think, oh wow, that really works. Gorgeous food. Bar Merenda is now moved site, so they're in Dalesford, and amazing, just gorgeous. And the people here, it's a very joyful place, you know, and everyone's here to provide and see happy faces with their food and their wine, and everyone shares. It's not like this is mine, which is gorgeous too.
So tell me about the lamb delivery.
So we're very fortunate to have another new producer in the area, Jenna and her partner, who have started Addington Downs, which is specialising in lamb and goat. And the lamb in particular, because she's a chef by trade, has developed a more European style of when the animal is culled and butchered. So we're expecting this afternoon our first 5 kilo delivery of her lambs, being beautiful, only small roast size, enough for 2, and obviously other cuts of cutlets and so forth. But she's a very passionate person about her food and how they raise their animals and how they're treated. So another one to the region, which is in line with Brooklyn Farms and Jonai, who started this movement here of regenerative farming, and it shows in the produce. It's divine.
Yeah, amazing. So Jenna Abratzese, who I really loved as a chef in Melbourne, and then it's been amazing to watch her farming journey. So look out for her on an upcoming episode of the Producers podcast, because I'm so excited to chat to her about life as a farmer. Jen, while we've got you trapped by the mic, tell us about the home that you have on the property. We're sitting at your gorgeous dining table. It's just set the scene for us and tell us a little bit about this house.
So our architect was Grant Amon, who's an old friend of ours, and we've worked on projects before. So it was a very collaborative process, and we knew on this site we had a small footprint of about 9 by 20 metres, which Heritage Victoria were allowing us to build upon. Our house also had to fit in with the existing macaroni factory, so it couldn't be in competition with it. And we knew that meant setting it back from the street, like 15 odd metres, so it's a very plain facade. But then as we come into the house, we were able to open out into the north-facing garden. And so we decided to choose a brick that comes from northern Italy and fits in beautifully with the factory, and also to have what is sometimes deemed controversial, which were some contemporary arches based on one at the front of the factory, which is a sort of flattened arch doorway. And so we've incorporated different sizes of those on the loggia, which separates the house a little bit from the full glazing inside.
Yeah, it's such a glorious outlook. Like, just tell us what we can see from where you're sitting.
So we look straight through to 2 heritage trees. One is the Douglas fir and the other one is a pear, which were planted at the time of the factory was constructed around 1859. They're massive, they're protected. There's also another one on the back of Pietro's terrace, which is an apple tree of the same sort of era. And then looking through the garden, there's been a mix of plantings over time, some beautiful grapevines that produce a grape which the locals called Hubba Bubba, which is sort of not great for wine but good for juicing. We have artichokes, we have wild roses, we have a beautiful big fig tree, which is here, which produces the most beautiful figs, which we're looking forward for summer, and so is Dave from Surly Goat, waiting to every time asking if those figs are ready. Plenty of lemon trees.
Amazing. What's it like for you to live sort of between the historic and the contemporary?
It's beautiful. I don't know how you describe that, because we just see it changing all year round. You always want to be outside and in the garden and doing things, and so you can keep improving on different garden beds and the soils. We look forward to having a few summer parties here, because now it's finished and our lawn straight outside the house is glorious with views over the garden.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, you know, when people hear the word factory, they might think of something quite industrial, but can you sort of set the scene for us? Like, what do you imagine it would have been like when they were producing macaroni and other pastas in that building?
Chaotic, I think. When you think of the rooms, they are just rooms and different sizes, and they have been used for different purposes over time as well. Maybe that was how the Italians viewed it. Everything could change. It had been a hotel for a while. It was a shop. It was also the manufacturing of the macaroni. It was holiday lets. So it's had many incarnations. It was a restaurant for a while before we took over. So it's multi-purposed. But I think making when you say factory and macaroni, I don't think it's what you envisage it to be.
Well, it's definitely not what you envisage, because I suppose even knowing it's an old building, you hear factory, I don't know, maybe I was thinking, is there going to be stainless steel? Is there going to be machinery that with cloths over it or something?
Yeah.
But it's not like that at all.
No. It's as though someone opened up in their house.
Yeah, absolutely. It does feel very domestic. There's one room that's got of quite grand proportions, but it still doesn't feel like something you could imagine, you know, dozens of workers bustling around.
And it was probably just the family who were making the macaroni at the time, probably the kids who all involved in that process.
Swapping gens, when do you think the name Old Macaroni Factory first came into use?
Well, there were 6 descendants, and then the last descendant sold it to us. And in her time, she called it the Old Macaroni Factory. When her father, she inherited it from her father, and it was derelict, the building, he registered it with Heritage Victoria, and it was called the former Macaroni Factory. I think that was a bit of a sort of dour name, so I think she changed it to the Old Macaroni Factory. Still on the outside of the building, although you can't actually, it says the word Lucchini's, which was their last name, then it says Macaroni Factory, which you can barely make out, and we do hope to apply to have a permit to reinstate that as a distress sign, so it's people know what it is. But yeah, I think the word factory was probably in the 1930s. They had machinery, which was timber. The owner number 4 was, I'm not going to say she was Bad Rosa, but there were 2 Rosas. There was Good Rosa and Bad Rosa. We say Bad Rosa only because she inherited it at a time when it was between the wars and the Depression. She made the best fist of it, but she sold all the furniture, which was the machinery, really just timber bits that made the macaroni back in the day. So it was a functioning macaroni making zone until 1930s. And then it became a caravan park and holiday let. So she divided all the rooms up, painted the walls that were painted, decoratively painted, and started the whole destruction of what we're trying to now unconstruct. Sadly, but she had to, I suppose, in those times, you know, you had to live, and this place wasn't making its way with making macaroni on the old machinery, and her Italianness, it said, had gone. There was nothing left. It was very Aussie, and then she left it to her cousin, who was Italian again, so the Italianness came back into the family line. And then the last owner, she did her best, but there wasn't a lot of money, and it was very kind of sticky tape together, which we've had to unsticky tape and redo properly. But that's where I think that the name factory is a misnomer, and it's really they're just rooms. We do keep the names. There's the macaroni making room, or macaroni room. It does have a tap that's sitting in the wall, and it goes nowhere, but once it went to a well, and we think we found where the well would have been. And they did make macaroni, which in 1882, at the Great Exhibition in Melbourne, they won gold for their vermicelli, the macaroni, and I think it was spaghetti. But I've got to say, I'm not sure how deep the competition would have been.
Yeah.
Maybe they were the only people making it and they did get gold. But anyway, I think he lived off that for a little while.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, when they think Italians in Australia, they think of, big waves of immigration through the 50s.
Yes.
The post-war immigration. And certainly there were more Italians that came then than previously. But it is, it's so important to Victoria's history to remember that there were these Italians that came out in the mid-19th century.
Yeah, and the ones that came out, the Swiss Italians, they came from the southern Canton of Ticino, and they came because it was so poor. They were so poor, and the rumours went around there that you went to Australia and there was lumps of gold lying on the street. That's what they were told, to get on the ships to come out here. So of course they were led astray a bit. But those descendants, there's a lot of them around town, and they can all thread their descendancy back to this core group who came out here. And the Swiss Italian Festa is in October. It's a very small, very local thing that happens, and they're mainly made up of the descendants. So they're all around, and when we had the guy coming here to fix a fridge, he goes, I'm descendant number 8, from the long line. Oh yeah, I know this story. I remember when this happened in the factory, and they all remember as kids coming here and playing, and their grandparents telling them stories about the place. And a little film was made in the 90s as well, set in this place. It's called Love's Brother. Not much of a film, but it was interesting to see how it was all put together.
You mentioned the rigours of working with Heritage Victoria and how you were committed to that process because you believe in the project. But if you hadn't bought it and you hadn't been so committed to putting in, investing in it as a project, it could potentially have crumbled to dust. Like, how do you reconcile that? That someone comes along who is willing, and then it's made so hard for them to realise the project.
I must say, having survived, so to speak, the process of the bureaucracy, which was not just through Heritage Victoria. The building regulations are very, very tough to work within. But when you try to fit a 165-year-old building into 2023 rules and regulations for building code, it's a real struggle. And we did get there in the end, but it wasn't without a lot of money, a lot of patience, a lot of trying to think how we could do this, make it work, and a lot of shaking of your head going, really? You really? You can't put a sprinkler in the middle of the ceiling because it's got a painting there. That's for the fire. That's not going to work. So we did have to do a lot. We didn't get 1 cent from anyone to help us, no grants, no nothing. So it meant our commitment. We were going to be old ladies who were going to fly around the world and have a nice little retirement and enjoy travel, which we do love. Well, we haven't even travelled outside Australia, because we haven't had the time to do that. We're devoted to it. We see it as a legacy, custodianship, but certainly a legacy we want to leave behind for it. Now it's been done so properly, so beautifully, that it will be a generational thing that we've left behind. And for us, that's amazing,
Well, it is amazing, but thank you so much for your commitment, because it's such a beautiful place, and I feel like people are going to create their own memories here as you open it up to events and other things. So I want to do 2 things. I want to give a plug to Pietro's apartment and say that people who are looking for a lovely getaway should definitely look it up. There's 1 bed, so it's for a couple or 2 people who don't mind getting a bit cozy. You sleeping under an amazing mural with a lot of history and portent, and it's very, you're just inside the story in that room. And then you've got the kitchen living room, where we should perhaps say that you can't actually cook up a storm because you're not allowed to, but you can make a lovely coffee. And there are some amazing Philip Stark kitchen rocking chairs to sit at like all the little objects are so amazing. And the bathroom, as you talked about, is this very cool pod in the centre of the room, beautiful tiles, and just a really wonderful space to ablute. And the garden. And you're in Hepburn Springs. So everyone who's looking for a special getaway, check it out. And the other thing, let's announce on this podcast that we're going to collaborate on a series of events. Working title, Dani Valent's Salon Series. Do we agree with that?
Yeah, I think it sounds good to us.
And so watch this space for announcements of some events that are using the beautiful Old Macaroni Factory with beautiful food and drinks and conversations.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to collaborate and just create some new stories in a very storied building.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Jens. Wonderful to be here, and so honoured to bring a little bit of the Old Macaroni story to the public.
Thanks very much, Dani.
Thank you. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This